Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a serene lake on a still day. Its surface reflects the world around it, trees, sky, clouds, without becoming disturbed. This is the state of mind we should strive to cultivate: calm, reflective, and untouched by the winds of external disturbance. To act as if nothing and no one bothers you is not about pretending or suppressing. It is about embodying a deeper truth that nothing external truly has the power to disrupt your inner state unless you allow it. Most of us live as if our peace depends on circumstances aligning perfectly. A kind word, a smooth day, a cooperative colleague, these are seen as prerequisites for happiness. But this is an illusion. When you hinge your state of being on the actions or approval of others, you give away your power. Instead, realize this: every situation, no matter how challenging, offers an opportunity to step into your mastery. When someone criticizes you, do you react with defensiveness or do you pause, allowing their words to pass through you like wind through open space? This pause is your power. It creates distance between stimulus and response, and in that distance lies freedom. To act unbothered is not to disregard others or the world. It is to recognize that your peace is not dependent on them. Think of it as detachment, not apathy. You still care, you still engage, but you do so without letting the noise of the external world dictate your internal state. Begin with the mind. The mind thrives on problems. It loves to overthink and amplify disturbances. Notice this tendency without judgment. With practice, you'll see that the mind's chatter is just background noise, like leaves rustling in the wind. When you stop identifying with it, its power over you dissolves. Anchor yourself in the present moment. Often what bothers us is not what's happening now, but our stories about it, what it means or what it might lead to. Drop these stories. When fully present, life's moments are just passing experiences, like clouds across the sky. Others may act in ways that seem unfair. Circumstances may unfold unpredictably. This is the nature of life. But remember, you cannot control the waves, only how you navigate them. Resisting the uncontrollable only deepens your discomfort. Accepting it, on the other hand, liberates you. In this state of liberation, you become like the serene lake, reflecting the world without being disturbed by it. And in this stillness, you'll find not only peace, but also immense clarity and strength. So act as if nothing and no one bothers you, not as an act of pretense, but as a recognition of the truth that your inner state is yours to preserve, regardless of what happens outside. Let this truth guide you, and you will move through life with grace, unaffected by its storms. The ability to remain unbothered by external circumstances and people stems from cultivating a state of inner stillness. This stillness is not a passive or indifferent state, but an active engagement with the deeper core of who you are. In this state, you realize that true power does not come from controlling the outer world or forcing situations to align with your preferences. Instead, it arises from the calm, unshakable presence within you that remains untouched by the chaos of life. Inner stillness is not the absence of thought or emotion, but the space that holds them. It allows you to observe your reactions without being consumed by them. Often we feel bothered because we are caught in a cycle of identification with external triggers. Someone says something hurtful, and we immediately feel anger, hurt, or frustration, as though their words define our reality. But when you cultivate inner stillness, you see that their words are just sounds, interpretations, or projections of their own experience. They lose the power to disturb your equilibrium because you no longer see yourself as defined by them. To understand this power, imagine a tree in a storm. Its branches may sway wildly in the wind, but its roots remain firmly grounded. Inner stillness is like those roots. While your thoughts and emotions might sway in response to external events, the deeper part of you, the part rooted in stillness, remains unaffected. From this place of calm, you can respond to life with clarity and wisdom rather than reacting impulsively. This state of being is not something reserved for monks or mystics. It is available to everyone. It begins with the simple practice of awareness. Start by noticing the things that typically bother you, perhaps a coworker's criticism, a delay in plans, or a perceived slight from a friend. Observe how your body reacts. Does your chest tighten? Does your mind begin to race with defensive thoughts? These reactions are natural, but they are also automatic. They happen because the mind interprets these events as threats, triggering a response aimed at self-protection. When you bring awareness to these reactions, you create space between the trigger and your response. In that space lies your choice. You can choose to remain anchored in stillness, to let the reaction arise and subside without becoming entangled in it. Over time, this practice transforms how you experience life. External events still occur, but they lose their ability to dictate your inner state. Cultivating inner stillness also involves letting go of the need to control everything around you. Many of the things that bother us stem from our desire for the world to conform to our expectations. We want people to behave a certain way, situations to unfold according to our plans, and outcomes to match our preferences. But life rarely aligns perfectly with our desires. The more we resist this reality, the more we suffer. Inner stillness arises when we accept the world as it is, without resistance or judgment. This does not mean passivity or resignation. Acceptance is not about giving up, it is about recognizing the limits of control and focusing your energy on what truly matters, your inner response. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and open the door to peace. Another key aspect of cultivating inner stillness is quieting the mind. The mind is often the source of disturbance, endlessly replaying past grievances or imagining future problems. It amplifies minor irritations into major sources of discomfort. To quiet the mind, practice being present. Bring your attention fully to the current moment, whether you're walking, eating, or simply breathing. In the present moment, the mind loses its grip, and you begin to experience the stillness that underlies all activity. Inner stillness is a journey, not a destination. It requires practice and patience. But as you nurture this state within yourself, you will find that the world's noise no longer pulls you away from your center. People may still act in ways you find challenging. Circumstances may still be unpredictable. Yet your response will come from a place of peace and strength, not reactivity. Inner stillness is the source of true power. It allows you to navigate life's challenges with grace, free from the emotional turbulence that so often accompanies external events. It is not something you acquire, it is something you uncover within yourself, a calm, steady presence that has been there all along. Once you tap into this power, you will realize that nothing and no one truly has the ability to disturb your peace unless you permit it. And in that realization, you will find a freedom that no external force can take away. External events and people hold no inherent power to disturb our inner peace. Their effect on you depends entirely on how we perceive and react to them. This simple yet profound truth underscores the idea that perception shapes reality. What bothers us is not the event itself, but the meaning we assign to it. By recognizing this, we can transform how we experience the world and regain control over our emotional state. You receive critical feedback from someone. One person might interpret the feedback as a personal attack and feel hurt, while another might see it as an opportunity to grow and feel grateful. The event is the same, but the reactions are vastly different. Why? Because the first person perceives the feedback as a threat to their sense of self-worth, while the second person sees it as valuable insight. This example illustrates how our perceptions, not the events themselves, determine whether we feel bothered. The mind plays a central role in shaping these perceptions. It is a storyteller, constantly interpreting events and spinning narratives about what they mean. These stories are often influenced by past experiences, insecurities, and societal conditioning. For instance, if someone doesn't reply to your message promptly, your mind might tell you a story: they're ignoring me, or they don't care. In reality, there could be countless reasons for their delay, most of which have nothing to do with you. Yet the story your mind creates can generate unnecessary feelings of rejection or frustration. To overcome this tendency, the first step is awareness. When something bothers you, pause and observe your thoughts. Ask yourself, what story am I telling about this situation? By identifying the narrative, you can begin to question its validity. Often you'll find that your initial interpretation is not the only possible one and may not even be accurate. This simple act of questioning creates space for a more balanced and less reactive response. Another important realization is that we often project our own feelings and fears onto external events. For example, if someone's comment irritates us, it might be because it touches on an unresolved insecurity within us. The comment itself is neutral, but our perception of it is colored by our inner struggles. By addressing these internal triggers, we can neutralize their power to disturb us. It's also helpful to recognize the impermanence of all experiences. What bothers us today is unlikely to matter in a week, a month, or a year. When viewed from this broader perspective, most problems lose their intensity. This understanding helps us see events for what they are: temporary occurrences that do not define us or our lives. By letting go of the need to cling to every experience or emotion, we allow them to pass through us without leaving lasting imprints of distress. Another practice that can shift perception is cultivating empathy. When someone's actions bother you, try to see the situation from their perspective. People often act out of their own pain, fears, or misunderstandings. Recognizing this doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it can reduce the intensity of your reaction. When you view others through the lens of compassion, their actions are less likely to feel like personal attacks. To transform perception further, consider adopting a mindset of curiosity rather than judgment. When faced with a challenging situation, instead of immediately labeling it as bad or unfair, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can I grow through this experience? This shift in perspective turns obstacles into opportunities for self-discovery and empowerment. The practice of mindfulness is invaluable in reshaping perception. When you are fully present, you experience life as it is, without the distortions of the mind's interpretations. In the present moment, external events lose their emotional charge, and you can respond to them with greater clarity and calmness. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or avoiding action. Instead, it means engaging with the world from a place of inner peace and stability. The realization that perception shapes reality empowers you to reclaim control over your emotional well-being. Life will always present challenges, and people will sometimes act in ways that are difficult to understand or accept. But when you shift your perception, you change your relationship with these experiences. They no longer have the power to disturb you because you've learned to see them for what they are: fleeting moments in a vast, ever-changing reality. By mastering your perception, you cultivate resilience and inner freedom. You come to understand that nothing and no one truly has the power to bother you unless you allow it. This realization is not an escape from life, but a deeper engagement with it, free from the unnecessary weight of misinterpretation and emotional reactivity. It is a liberation that allows you to live with greater ease, grace, and authenticity, no matter what unfolds around you. Being unbothered by external influences does not mean becoming apathetic or disconnected from the world around you. Rather, it means cultivating detachment, a state of inner balance where you engage with life fully but without being consumed by its ups and downs. Detachment and apathy are often misunderstood as similar, but they are fundamentally different. Detachment is rooted in strength and presence, while apathy arises from indifference and avoidance. Detachment allows you to care deeply without being overwhelmed by circumstances. Imagine holding a delicate object in your hand. Gripping it too tightly may damage it, but holding it with care and lightness allows you to interact with it fully. This is the essence of detachment: involvement without clinging. It enables you to love, work, and live passionately while maintaining an inner calm that is not dependent on outcomes or external validation. Apathy, on the other hand, is a withdrawal from emotional engagement. It often stems from a sense of hopelessness or fear of vulnerability. While apathy may protect you from pain in the short term, it also dulls your experience of joy, connection, and meaning. Detachment, in contrast, enhances your ability to experience life fully because it frees you from the need to control or resist what happens. One way to practice detachment is by examining your attachments. These are the emotional bonds you form with specific outcomes, possessions, or relationships. While it is natural to have desires and preferences, problems arise when these attachments become rigid or overly important to your sense of self. For instance, if you tie your happiness to career success, a setback at work may feel devastating. Detachment doesn't mean abandoning your goals, it means pursuing them with enthusiasm while recognizing that your worth and peace are not dependent on their achievement. Another aspect of detachment is releasing the need for approval from others. People often behave in ways that are influenced by their own emotions, beliefs, and experiences which may have little to do with you. When you let go of the need to control how others perceive or treat you, you liberate yourself from unnecessary suffering. This doesn't mean you stop valuing relationships, it means you engage with others from a place of authenticity and freedom rather than fear or dependency. A powerful tool for cultivating detachment is mindfulness. When you practice being fully present, you learn to observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them. For example, if someone criticizes you, instead of immediately reacting, you can pause and notice your inner response. You might feel anger or hurt, but instead of identifying with these feelings, you observe them as passing experiences. This shift in perspective allows you to respond with clarity rather than being swept away by reactivity. Detachment also involves embracing impermanence. Everything in life is transient: relationships, possessions, achievements, and even challenges. Clinging to anything as if it were permanent creates tension and suffering because it goes against the natural flow of life. When you accept impermanence, you can appreciate and engage with the present moment fully, knowing that it is fleeting. This acceptance doesn't diminish your experience, it deepens it as you no longer waste energy resisting change. It's important to recognize that detachment is not about avoiding responsibility or emotional connections. It's about engaging with life from a place of stability and self-awareness. For example, in a relationship, detachment doesn't mean withdrawing love or commitment. It means loving deeply while respecting the individuality and autonomy of both yourself and your partner. It means understanding that the relationship enhances your life but doesn't define your worth or happiness. Detachment also allows you to let go of the illusion of control. Much of what happens in life is beyond your influence. By accepting this truth, you reduce the stress and frustration that come from trying to manage the uncontrollable. Instead of resisting reality, you learn to flow with it, adapting to challenges and opportunities as they arise. This mindset can be applied to all areas of life. In your career, for instance, detachment means doing your best while recognizing that you cannot control every outcome. In friendships, it means valuing connections without being overly dependent on them for validation. In personal growth, it means striving for improvement while accepting yourself as you are. Detachment empowers you to live with greater freedom and resilience. It allows you to face difficulties with equanimity and appreciate joys without clinging to them. It is not a denial of life's richness, but a deeper embrace of it, free from the fear of loss or failure. By practicing detachment, you can act as if nothing and no one truly bothers you, not because you are indifferent, but because you have discovered an unshakable peace within yourself. Mastery over your mind is one of the most significant steps toward remaining unbothered by external events and people. The mind is a powerful tool, but it can also be a source of unnecessary suffering when left unchecked. Its habitual patterns of overthinking, judgment, and attachment often amplify challenges, making small disturbances seem overwhelming. By learning to observe, quiet, and direct the mind, you can regain control over your emotional state and navigate life with greater ease and clarity. The mind tends to operate on autopilot, reacting to situations based on conditioned responses developed over time. For example, if someone criticizes you, your mind might immediately generate defensive thoughts: they're wrong, this isn't fair, or even what if they're right. These thoughts often arise without your conscious choice, triggering emotions like anger, frustration, or self-doubt. In such moments, it can feel as though the mind is controlling you rather than the other way around. The first step to mastering the mind is awareness. You cannot change what you do not observe. Begin by noticing the patterns of your thoughts, especially in situations where you feel bothered or upset. Are you catastrophizing, assuming the worst possible outcome? Are you personalizing events that have little to do with you? These patterns are not reality, they are stories your mind creates based on past experiences or fears. Recognizing them as such is the first step toward breaking their hold on you. Once you become aware of your thoughts, the next step is to create space between you and them. This can be done through practices like mindfulness or meditation, which help you cultivate the ability to observe your thoughts without identifying with them. For instance, if a thought arises that says, "I'm not good enough," instead of accepting it as truth, you can simply note it, there's a thought of self-doubt. This act of observing rather than engaging with your thoughts weakens their grip and reminds you that they are temporary mental events, not absolute truths. Another essential aspect of mastering the mind is learning to quiet its incessant chatter. The mind often jumps from one concern to another, creating a constant background noise that prevents you from experiencing inner peace. This mental restlessness is sometimes referred to as the monkey mind swinging from one branch of thought to another without pause. To quiet this chatter, bring your focus to the present moment. Simple practices like deep breathing, grounding exercises, or focusing on your senses can anchor you in the now, where the mind stories lose their intensity. A quiet mind is not an empty mind, it is a mind that is under your direction. Once you've developed the ability to step back from reactive thinking, you can begin to intentionally choose thoughts that serve you. For example, instead of fixating on what went wrong in a situation, you can focus on what you've learned from it or how you can move forward. This shift in perspective doesn't deny reality, but reframes it in a way that empowers you rather than drains you. Mastering your mind also involves cultivating self-compassion. Often the harshest judgments come not from others, but from within. The mind can be critical, replaying mistakes or magnifying flaws. When you notice self-critical thoughts, respond to them with kindness as you would to a close friend. Remind yourself that no one is perfect and that growth comes from embracing both strengths and imperfections. It's also important to recognize that the mind's role is not inherently negative. It is designed to solve problems, analyze, and protect you from perceived threats. The key is to ensure that it works in harmony with your higher awareness rather than dominating your experience. Just as a skilled rider guides a horse, you can guide your mind, using its strengths without being controlled by its impulses. Mastering the mind doesn't mean suppressing emotions or avoiding challenges. Emotions like anger, sadness, or fear are natural responses to life's events. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to experience them fully without letting them take over. By observing your emotions and the thoughts that accompany them, you can process them in a healthy way, allowing them to flow through you without causing unnecessary turmoil. True mastery of the mind is a lifelong practice, but even small steps can bring significant benefits. Each moment of awareness, each pause before reacting, and each decision to choose a constructive thought over a destructive one strengthens your ability to remain calm and centered. Over time, you'll find that external events and people no longer have the same power to unsettle you. Instead, you'll experience a growing sense of inner freedom, rooted in the realization that your peace of mind is within your control. By mastering your mind, you take a crucial step toward a life where nothing and no one truly bothers you, not because the world has changed, but because you have. When you accept the reality of external chaos as an inevitable part of life, you empower yourself to live with greater peace and resilience. Chaos is not something to be avoided or feared. It is a natural element of existence, present in the unpredictability of people, events, and certain circumstances. Trying to eliminate all external chaos is not only impossible but also counterproductive, as it often leads to frustration and a sense of helplessness. Instead, by accepting its presence, you can navigate life with grace and clarity, finding harmony within yourself regardless of the surrounding turbulence. Life's chaos manifests in countless forms: a sudden change in plans, a disagreement with a loved one, or an unexpected setback at work. These disruptions can feel like obstacles to your happiness and stability, especially if you cling to the idea that life should always be smooth and predictable. However, chaos is not inherently negative. It is simply a reflection of the dynamic, ever-changing nature of the world. By reframing chaos as an opportunity for growth and adaptability, you can shift your perspective and approach it with openness rather than resistance. Resistance to chaos often arises from the desire for control. People tend to feel secure when life follows their expectations, but this sense of control is an illusion. Much of what happens around us is beyond our influence. Weather changes, economic fluctuations, and the behavior of others are all examples of external forces we cannot dictate. The more we resist this reality, the more stress and anxiety we experience. Acceptance, on the other hand, frees us from this futile struggle. When you acknowledge that chaos is a natural part of life, you stop fighting it and begin to flow with it. Acceptance does not mean resignation or passivity. It is not about giving up or letting life sweep you away. Instead, it is about recognizing the nature of reality and choosing how to respond to it. Imagine standing in a river with a strong current. If you try to resist the flow, you'll exhaust yourself. If you surrender to it completely, you might lose your footing. But if you learn to move with the current while maintaining your balance, you can navigate the river skillfully. Similarly, accepting chaos allows you to engage with life proactively while staying grounded in your inner stability. This perspective can be cultivated through the practice of mindfulness. By staying present, you become more attuned to the ebb and flow of life. You learn to observe chaotic situations without being overwhelmed by them. For instance, if you're in the midst of a heated argument or a stressful deadline, mindfulness helps you step back and see the bigger picture. You realize that this moment of chaos is temporary and does not define your entire experience. This awareness creates space for calm and intentional action. Another key to accepting chaos is developing flexibility. Life rarely unfolds exactly as planned, and rigid expectations can lead to disappointment. Flexibility allows you to adapt to changing circumstances with ease. Instead of clinging to a specific outcome, you remain open to new possibilities. For example, if a project at work takes an unexpected turn, instead of lamenting the disruption, you can focus on finding creative solutions. This mindset turns chaos into an opportunity for innovation and learning. Compassion, both for yourself and others, also plays an essential role. Chaos often arises from human interactions, misunderstandings, differing priorities, or mistakes. Recognizing that everyone, including yourself, is doing their best under complex circumstances fosters patience and empathy. When you view others through this lens, their actions are less likely to upset you, and you can approach chaotic situations with a calmer demeanor. Accepting chaos also involves letting go of the need for perfection. Life is messy, and so are people. Mistakes, delays, and conflicts are inevitable. By embracing imperfection, you free yourself from the constant pressure to fix or control everything. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, it means addressing them with a sense of calm and proportion, knowing that perfection is neither possible nor necessary. Accepting external chaos shifts your focus inward toward what you can control: your thoughts, emotions, and actions. This internal locus of control is a source of tremendous power. While you cannot dictate the behavior of others or prevent unexpected events, you can choose how you respond. You can cultivate inner peace even amidst turmoil, drawing on the understanding that chaos is not a threat but a natural part of the human experience. Through acceptance, you transform your relationship with chaos. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, you view it as a teacher, guiding you to develop resilience, patience, and adaptability. You realize that true stability does not come from trying to eliminate chaos, but from finding your center within it. By embracing this truth, you unlock a profound sense of freedom and strength, enabling you to act as if nothing and no one truly bothers you, no matter what life brings. Letting go of expectations is a powerful tool in reducing the emotional toll that external events and people can have on you. Expectations are often the root cause of disappointment, frustration, and stress. When we attach certain outcomes to our actions or experiences, we set ourselves up for a potential clash between what we desire and what actually occurs. This gap between expectation and reality is where suffering typically arises. By learning to release these expectations, we can live more freely, embracing life as it comes and cultivating a sense of peace regardless of the circumstances. Expectations are inherently limiting, because they are based on the assumption that we know what is best for ourselves and that the world should unfold according to our plans. While it is natural to have hopes and desires, when we cling to them with a sense of entitlement or demand, we place unnecessary pressure on ourselves and others. For example, you might expect your friends to behave in a certain way or believe that your career trajectory should follow a particular path. When these expectations are not met, disappointment and frustration follow, which can disturb your inner peace. The challenge with expectations is that they often stem from a place of fear, not faith. We expect things to turn out in a certain way because we are afraid of the unknown or feel uncertain about our ability to handle life's surprises. In truth, life is unpredictable, and clinging to rigid expectations blinds us to the beauty of spontaneity and the lessons hidden in unexpected turns. If we can let go of our attachment to specific outcomes, we open ourselves up to a richer, more fulfilling experience, one that is not dictated by preconceived notions but shaped by the present moment. One of the first steps in letting go of expectations is to recognize that expectations are not always grounded in reality. They are often based on assumptions, desires, or comparisons to others rather than an honest assessment of the present moment. For example, we may expect a certain result based on past experiences, or we may expect others to behave in ways that align with our personal values. However, every situation is unique and every individual operates from their own set of experiences, beliefs, and limitations. When we hold on to rigid expectations, we fail to honor this complexity and we set ourselves up for unnecessary frustration. Mindfulness is an effective practice for releasing expectations because it teaches us to live fully in the present without the need to control or predict outcomes. When we are mindful, we observe what is happening around us and within us without judgment or attachment to how things should be. This allows us to respond to life's events with greater clarity and acceptance. If something doesn't go as planned, instead of feeling disappointed or upset, we can embrace the reality of the moment and explore how we can move forward, knowing that this too is part of the unfolding process. Another important aspect of letting go of expectations is accepting that not everything is within our control. Life is filled with uncertainties, and trying to micromanage every detail only leads to frustration. When we relinquish the need to control everything, we allow space for life to unfold in its own time and rhythm. This shift in mindset not only reduces stress, but also fosters a deeper sense of trust in ourselves and in the flow of life. By letting go of expectations, we free ourselves from the burden of constantly striving for a specific outcome and can begin to appreciate the richness of the journey itself. Releasing expectations cultivates a sense of freedom and peace. When we let go of the need to control or force certain outcomes, we are no longer bound by the limitations of our own desires. Instead of focusing on what we think should happen, we can focus on what is happening right now. This shift enables us to experience life with greater openness, joy, and acceptance. We begin to see challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities for growth, and we approach each moment with curiosity rather than judgment. Letting go of expectations also enhances our relationships with others. Often our expectations of others create tension or dissatisfaction. We expect people to behave in certain ways, meet certain standards, or fulfill specific roles in our lives. When they don't, we can feel hurt, angry, or disappointed. By letting go of these expectations, we allow others to show up as they are without judgment or demand. This creates space for more authentic connections where people are free to be themselves without the pressure of living up to our preconceived notions. Releasing expectations brings us closer to living in alignment with the flow of life. We no longer need to constantly evaluate whether things are turning out as we had hoped. Instead, we learn to trust that whatever happens is the perfect unfolding of life, and we find peace in that acceptance. This mindset frees us from the need to control and allows us to embrace life as it is flawed, unpredictable, and beautifully imperfect. Through this practice, we can act as if nothing and no one bothers us, not because we are immune to life's challenges, but because we have learned to accept them without resistance, and in doing so, we create space for deeper joy, fulfillment, and inner peace. Living in the present moment is one of the most transformative practices you can adopt to maintain inner peace and remain unaffected by the external world. Our minds are often consumed by thoughts about the past or worries about the future, but the present moment is where life truly happens. When we are mentally caught in the past or the future, we lose touch with the only moment we actually have, the present. This disconnection from the present can lead to stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction as we become preoccupied with things that have already occurred or things that may never happen. To live in the present moment, we must cultivate mindfulness, which is the practice of paying full attention to what is happening right now without judgment or distraction. This might sound simple, but in reality, it is a skill that requires consistent practice and awareness. Our minds naturally wander, and without conscious effort, we can easily slip into patterns of overthinking or ruminating on past events. However, by developing the ability to return our focus to the present moment, we create space for clarity, peace, and acceptance. When you live in the present, you let go of the burden of regrets about the past and the anxiety about the future. Both past and future exist only in the mind memories of things that have already occurred and anticipations of what may come. While the past can teach us valuable lessons, it cannot be changed. Similarly, the future is uncertain, and worrying about what might happen only steals the peace of the present. When you focus on the now, you free yourself from these mental distractions and return to the essence of life itself. Being fully present means engaging with your surroundings and experiences with complete attention and awareness. For instance, when you are having a conversation with someone, instead of letting your mind wander or planning your response, you focus on truly listening to what the other person is saying. You pay attention to their tone, the words they use, and the emotions behind their message. This not only strengthens your relationships, but also brings you closer to the moment, allowing you to experience life more deeply.